So this is the long gestating project directed by Greta Gerwig, written by her and her partner Noah Baumbach, starring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling in the lead roles. This project has been in development for years, almost a decade, and it's changed hands. It's changed directors. At one point, Amy Schumer was going to star in the titular role. So it's changed hands, and it's finally out. Mattel's Barbie movie, long awaited. So our story begins in Barbieland, where we meet Margot Robbie as Barbie. She is stereotypical Barbie, and everything in Barbieland's amazing. Everything's pink. Everyone's happy. Everyone's having a good time. We meet a huge array of Barbies played by this amazing cast, including Issa Rae, Kate McKinnon, Emma Mackey, Hari Neff, Dua Lipa. I mean, on and on and on. There's just a ton throughout the movie. Eventually, Barbie begins to kind of have a little bit of an existential crisis. Strange things start happening, like she kind of falls off her house. Her feet go flat. They don't have that kind of famous arch that they have, and she starts having these thoughts about, like, you guys ever think about dying? And we kind of learn that there is a real world avatar or kind of person who plays with Barbie, and she's kind of feeling those same feelings. So then she goes on a quest along with Ken to find the real life girl that is playing with her, and to kind of see what is happening, what's up with my human character. And then she also learns what it means to be in the real world, which is in stark difference to Barbieland. So that's our setup. There's a lot going on in this movie, lots to talk about. Zach, what'd you think?
I think Barbie's a really stellar movie. I think it's really cool, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see it again. Going into it, I think Greta Gerwig has to answer the question, like, what do audiences expect of a Barbie movie? Is it going to be for kids? Is it going to be for jaded millennials? Is it going to be for older folks who used to play with Barbie like back in the day, right? It's a big legacy property. Obviously, there's a lot of Barbie media to come before. This is a different kind of approach. And I think from their first like teaser trailer with the open of the film, which is the 2001 A Space Odyssey sequence, they wanted to make it really obvious that we are not making this for children. I mean, you can bring kids, but like mostly it's aimed at people a little bit more mature. And in the same way that people, I think, walk into the Barbie movie with some kind of expectation, I think Gerwig does a great job of holding up like women, the idea of women as a concept, and what people expect of them, and kind of placing those two things adjacent to create an adventure that's surprisingly fun, candid, really surreal, and very funny. I liked Barbie a lot. I'm excited to talk about it. Crystal, what did you think of Barbie?
Oh, I love Barbie. I think it was such a great blend of things for so many different audiences too. And a lot of times when movies try to be for every audience, they fail horribly, and it just ruins it for every audience. But there were jokes in there for lesbians. There were jokes in there for kids. There were jokes in there for those of us who played with Barbie in the 90s. There were jokes for people when Barbie first came out in the 50s. There was a lot of different things in there that I really appreciated, even if the joke wasn't for me specifically, if that makes sense. So that was something that I really appreciated. And I really liked seeing so much of the throwbacks. If you weren't someone who played with Barbie, you might have missed that, but it was chock full of Easter eggs. And sometimes that can get really annoying, but it was something that I really appreciated in this movie because it brings you back to those classic moments. And everyone, because there's so many options with Barbie, had a different classic moment. So I just felt like it was so many options to connect with the audience individually.
Absolutely. No, I feel the same way. Andy, where do you want to start talking about this thing?
Well, I just want to give my quick thoughts before we get into specifics. This movie grew on me over the weekend. I think I suffered from like the hype viewing, where I was really hyped for it, and I was a little like I wasn't very enamored with it initially, but I've grown to really really like it. Sometimes that happens, like where second viewing or third viewing is actually way better than your initial. That's how I felt about like the Joker movie. I didn't really like it initially. But I'm really loving this in hindsight. It's so much fun, but it's also very serious. You know, you have the almost Toy Story version of a toy and their environment, their home Barbieland, amazing, and all the different versions. But then you also have very real issues of what it's like and what it means to be a woman in modern times and what it meant 20 years, 30 years, 50, 60 years. It also addresses problematic elements of the Barbie brand, and they're like, oh, this Barbie used to have like inflatable breasts, and it's like, oh, geez. So they didn't shy away from that, but there's a lot of great things to talk about.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
where
Zach.
do you want to? Well, I was going to say, I think where I'd probably want to kick it off is its setting. I think that's kind of the first place we should talk about it. I know the cast is really important. I want to talk about the script, but you can't talk about Barbie without talking about Barbieland, which is this surreal, hyper-saturated, bright pink, bright blue world that all of the Barbies and all of the Kens live in. That's where the film opens, of course. You could see it in the trailer. And everything is Barbie-sized and Barbie-oriented. The Barbie dream house looks just like the Barbie dream house, right? And there's no real water, and there's no real food. Like all the Barbies and Kens eat and drink as if they were eating and drinking of the Mattel toys of old. And every Barbie is a certain kind of Barbie, just like Crystal described. Uniquely STEM oriented, which we should talk about in a second. We have a Dr. Barbie and a President Barbie and a lawyer Barbie and a scientist Barbie. And of course we have Margot Robbie's Barbie, who is stereotypical Barbie. She's the Barbie you think of whenever you just think of Barbie, right? Like your blonde-haired, blue-eyed Barbie. And we have Ryan Gosling's Ken, right? Who just wants Barbie's attention so bad. It's all he wants in the whole wide world. And meanwhile, Barbie's got other bigger fish to fry. And when something goes amiss, I should say, I don't want to give it away. We're not a spoiler show, but in Barbieland, Barbie and Ken have to travel to the real world, and that's where they discover that things are not as they expected, right? Things do not quite run the same way as they do in Barbieland. The real world is still a little surreal, especially the Mattel headquarters, which is a unique setting and makes for a lot of good comedy, I think, in the film. But otherwise, like bouncing between Barbieland and the real world creates a unique blend of like surreal and reality that I think disarms you for its most emotional moments. Reminding me a little like a Wes Anderson movie, right? Like with a big artificial set that creates, I don't know, like a setting for your characters to just kind of play and have fun, and you don't have to spend too much time getting mired in like the complicated. What do you think, Andy?
The sets are one of the things that really sells this movie. When I first saw the teaser, however many months ago it was, that's what really blew me away. I was like, oh, they've built these sets. Like they've used, like hammer and nail and a ton of pink, and it's not all just CGI like a lot of things would tend to be. It just really, it creates buy-in to where you're like, oh, this world is very real, and it's a stark contrast from the real world. I was a little worried that this entire movie would take place in the real world because we go there fairly early in the film, and I was like, oh no, if like 80% of this movie's in the real world, that's going to kind of be a bait and switch. But it's not. That we do spend a lot of time in Barbieland.
Yeah. And I think it's a good thing too. Crystal, hot takes on, I don't know, our set, look of the movie?
Yeah, that was something the movie is very campy, but they also limit that campiness to the moments when they are dolls, right? And so it creates this dichotomy between their real world and their doll selves. And I think even when they go into the real world, right, their characters and their outfits still look very camp, and it looks like they're standing out from their surroundings. And so I really loved the distension from reality, I don't know if that's the right word I'm looking for, that it created, because like you said, the water's plastic, the food's plastic, everything is doll-like. One of the things that I really appreciate was they keep pointing out that they don't have genitalia because they are dolls. So I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. Andy, what are we talking about next? Cast, comedy?
Let's get to cast. So I mentioned before, there's a massive cast of people who show up as different Barbies and play different Barbies. It's funny to look at the cast list because they all just talk to each other as Barbie. Margot Robbie's, of course, shouldering this film as the lead. She's amazing in as she is in so many things. We were actually just watching her in Babylon last night. But she does that mix of, she's campy when she needs to be campy, and then she's also like, there are some really serious in the moments where she really delivers. And I think one of the funniest things for me is to have humans act like the dolls, have the limited mobility. There's a moment where she's really kind of upset and crying on the ground, and she's just like turning her around awkwardly and like moving her arms away a stiff doll was. And it's just like little things like that. Incredible performance from her. And of course, the man of the hour, Ryan Gosling as Ken, who is totally committed to this. I mean, the people are talking about like he's like method acting as Ken because he's like in character off screen and on screen. Like all his PR bits he's done as Ken. He's taken it so seriously. And he's really funny. He's got a lot of just funny bits and also has a lot of surprising character development.
Yeah, like I've been really impressed with the marketing for the film. I think a lot of people think it has like $1 billion marketing budget, but I honestly I think a lot of it's just memes and people sharing it organically. Like I think they did a lot to market the movie, but I don't know if they did much more than the average feature. Yeah, Gosling's a delight in interviews. People are talking about him for a supporting actor Oscar for this. It kills me that I haven't heard more of that buzz for Robbie because she's so tremendous in this movie. The supporting cast is fantastic too. A bunch of winners in there: Issa Rae, Simu Liu, Will Ferrell, Hari Neff, who we should talk about in a second. But like, I think Robbie does such a great job of pulling you into the emotion. Like, there's a great bit in Babylon, Speak of the Devil, movie I think is tremendous, where Margot Robbie is noticed for her ability to cry on camera on demand, like 1 tear, 2 tear, and she cries on demand like 6 times in this movie, and every time it like tugs at your heartstrings. Every time it feels meaningful. It's never like a joke. You're never meant to laugh at it. Like every time it draws on emotion that feels very tangible and real. And that's movie magic, man. Like that stuff is special. Like that can make you feel something by staring at the silver screen. Gerwig manages to land that perfectly. Their script with Noah Baumbach is fantastic. Crystal, hot takes on the Barbies, the Kens. What do you think?
So the movie tagline is "She's everything and he's just Ken." And I think there's a lot of people who hated on that idea in the movie. But when the doll was created, Ken was created 10 years after Barbie. And, you know, it's Barbie's name on Malibu Dreamhouse, on the car, everything. And Ken has only ever been her boyfriend. They're not married. So Ken was literally created as an accessory to Barbie. And I think that's something that this movie does so well that so many people take as a political comment, which I'm sure they doubled as to make it funny. But in reality, he's always just been Ken, while Barbie's been Dr. Barbie, journalist Barbie, all these things. The first Ken that ever came out, the only clothing he ever had was a pair of swim trunks, and they never gave him any more accessories or anything, you know? So I think that's something that the movie does really well. There's a bunch of Kens, and they're all just Ken. Through the whole movie, they all just call each other Ken. But there's all the Barbies are by their profession, President Barbie, Dr. Barbie. And I really loved that the professions were either, like I said, political or what you mentioned, STEM. There's one Barbie, Mermaid Barbie, Dua Lipa, and that's a great throw in there. But literally every single other one is a journalist or a diplomat, things like that. So I really appreciated that. I will, however, add that I never want to see John Cena act in anything again. Merkin was his titular role. That was amazing.
Apparently, he brought his own wig. Apparently, he has like a collection because people were pointing out like his wig looks amazing and like Dua Lipa's is it's a little shoddy, and apparently it's because it's his own and it's like fit to his and cut to his head and all
Didn't
that.
he wear some wig like that in some other movie or commercial he was in? I wonder if he like kept the wig.
Probably.
Maybe. Now that you mention it, I think I have seen him in a long blonde wig like one other time. I can't tell you what it was though. But yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, friend of the show, John Cena. Everybody loves that guy. Andy, what's next? I feel like we've been talking a long time. Maybe we should start to curb this, but there's a lot to say.
Right. I wanted to get a little bit into the plot. There is a lot going on, and I think I want to talk about like the inspirations. There's hints of like Toy Story, of the Pinocchio story, of this kind of these other coming of age bits. There's so much inspiration in the movie that it just culminates in this amazing thing. Our plot does get kind of complicated the longer we go, and I don't want to spoil anything. But things get interesting when we return to Barbieland from the real world. But it's a lot of fun along the way.
Yeah, I was really satisfied with the way Barbie and Ken are changed when they go to the real world and how that affects their kind of general impressions of people and themselves. And then when that kind of goes back to Barbieland and starts to kind of change things too, for those who haven't seen the movie, it's satisfying and it's big and it's bold, and I realize that some people, like Crystal said, have been taking some offense to it on the internet, and like I don't know, man. I think they're all a bunch of squares. It's just a movie. Like, don't overthink it. It's a fantastic popcorn feature, and I love what it has to say about gender, and I love what it has to say about what we expect of one another, and projecting our own beliefs on the other, and what that will do to people, and why we shouldn't let each other do that to one another. Like, it's important. And most importantly, like, I love the audience that came to it. My theater was all like moms and girlfriends and girls. Like, and I can't, like, we've done 221 episodes of the show. Never have I walked into a theater with that kind of turnout. Like, tremendous. Like, speaking to an audience who doesn't often get out to the movies. Like, really great. And I was really pleased with it. Crystal, general
That
thoughts.
was one thing I
impressions,
wanted to add, just about Greta Gerwig in general. I read her process and a couple interviews about doing this movie, and I know you don't do spoilers, so I'll try to keep it vague, but she took a really important stance on how she ended the movie, and she represented girls, in those STEM positions like we talked about, but in the final line of the movie, she really wanted to leave a good point, and I think she did that very well. I won't say what that is, but I think that Barbie was designed for girls to imagine what it would be like to be an adult girl, and she kept that in mind when she was developing this movie, and even in the final line that girls walk away from that theater with, knowing who would be in the audience. So I really appreciated that.
Likewise, a tremendous feature. Andy, any other thoughts?
Last thing I just thought as we're playing the trailer footage, Kate McKinnon plays Weird Barbie. Yes, thank you. She's the Barbie that you experimented on, that you cut her hair weird and drew on with marker. And she's absolutely hilarious because like that comes through in her personality. She has various looks. She sits in the splits all the time. Like, it's those kinds of details that are so good. And it's like, so much of the movies is aimed at men and boys. Like, I was thinking about all the movies that have come out this summer, like Guardians, Spider-Man, The Flash, Fast X, Indiana Jones, Mission Impossible. These are all aimed at dudes largely, and we have our Easter eggs, and it's just such great representation to finally have a property for women that have all those Easter eggs and things, if you know, in them as well.
Yeah, it's true. Like, we've seen a lot of like dude-oriented films on this show naturally, right? It's genuinely refreshing to see something different, see something new, to hear bold voices. It's tremendous. Recommendations? Are we ready?
We are ready.
Andy, would you recommend Barbie?
Absolutely would. Definitely the biggest movie of the summer. Going to be one of the biggest films of the year. Surprisingly, just great time. It's funny, it's endearing, it's sweet, it looks amazing. There's a lot of there's musical numbers. It's everything you want in a movie.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think Barbie's tremendous. I wish I could tell you to go see it on the biggest screen possible. Unfortunately, Oppenheimer has pretty much all of those locked down, and any that aren't are going to Mission Impossible. But still, go see it on the big screen. You'll probably have a great crowd watching it. Like, I think it's still selling really well. It's crushing at the box office. Barbie's a great time. Crystal, what do you think? Recommendations?
12 out of 10. I loved it. Just make sure you watch it somewhere where you're allowed to laugh really loud.
Yeah, big time. Crystal, thanks for joining us on the show. We're going to talk about the writer's strike, death of cinema. Do you want to stick around? You're going to duck? No obligation.
I have not seen Oppenheimer, so I'm going to dip so y'all don't ruin anything for me, but enjoy.
Rock on. Thanks for joining us. Seriously, you did great. Fantastic work. You'll have to come back soon. Yeah.
All right, bye.
All right, Andy, with that, we should introduce our next segment. You want to do the honors on this?
It's time for the death of cinema.